kids are all whipping down now, and I was,
Oh. Well, you're going to be careful how you say that.
yeah. Well, if he even says that,
Yeah.
but he was a big.
Okay, you're on.
All right, I'd like to call the January 23rd budget meeting to order at 5:02. Has the meeting been officially warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Our goal here today is to finish up the budget, which it looks like there's a strong possibility that we will. And
But just to be clear, we're not looking, I'm looking for consensus from the board, and then it'll go to a public meeting
Public
for
meeting, right.
final approval,
right,
January 4th, hopefully.
okay. So when we
right.
last met, we were at 4%,
4.6.
4.6, no, 4%. We were at 4%, and we were looking for that to come down to at least 3%, and you're on.
All right, we were at 4.6%, and as the board is aware, one of the things that we did is working with staff, we made a change with our health insurance, and that provided some of the savings. What you have in front of you is the balanced, is a balanced budget. It represents, it says 2.9, it's actually 3.0, sorry, percent. And that's compared to the actual tax levy of fiscal year 11. It includes all expenditures, including the human services. I hope I have the right, I handed out the right memo. Did I hand out the right memo? Does it say, does yours say including human services?
Yeah, it does.
That's the wrong
With the
one.
exception of human
No,
services.
that's wrong. I realize it does include.
I've got this committed to memory now.
Things are changing all the time. All right, so this should be including human services.
This one says 2.9 also.
It says 2.9, but it's 3.
Is that accurate?
It's
The one that
close
you have.
enough. Hand grenades. Horseshoes and hand grenades, we're good, doing good. So that includes human services funding. It also includes all bonds and lease payments that would result from capital purchases identified in the capital improvement plan. And to reach that, we did a couple of different things. We went through on the revenue. We increased the in lieu of taxes to 155,000. That's actually going to be that's a realistic projection, particularly in light of we know there's going to be an increase, an additional payment in lieu of payment, at least one, if not two, that we're in current negotiations with. We also increased the farm tax reimbursement. That is on page 4. The in lieu of taxes is at the top of page 1. Farm tax reimbursement is page 4, kind of in the middle. It says 130,000. This year we're actually already at 110. Page 4.
Of which?
Page 4 of the budget, not the capital, sorry. We're actually at 110 right now. That 130 is a reasonable number, considering if during the reappraisal we revalued all of we redid the land, and so that's realistic. Then with regard to expenditures, we refined the workers' comp liability based on the actual bills. We actually find we did get the bills for that, so we know the first 6 months our workers' comp and liability actually stayed the same, and one went down a little bit. And originally, we had been
military criminal investigators. As part of the system, the FBI is operating a massive database known as Guardian.
health insurance. I would like to, at the end of this, have a very brief executive session to talk about a contractual matter. But with regard to the health insurance, there is a savings. We were projecting, I think, about $1,570,000, and with the changes to the high deductible, and there are a couple of assumptions that are made for this, and that's what I'd like to talk about in executive session. If you go to page 9 of 21, you can see we're at 1.492. So we saved about $78,000 from where we were projecting had we not made a change to where we are now. And again, remember, this is our insurance goes calendar year, January through December. This is July through June. So we know the first 6 months, and we make an assumption on the last 6 months. I made an assumption that I made a couple of different assumptions that we can talk about later. One being, but they have to do with the fact that we're going to be entering into bargaining unit negotiations. So I realized I didn't have rescues, the town's contribution to rescue. They've requested, when we met with them, a 2% rate increase. That's now reflected in here. And that is on page 11 of 21 at the bottom. That's about a $3,080 or $800 increase. I decreased overtime. We had done a substantial increase in some of the other overtimes. We decreased the overtime in fire, and decreased overtime in dispatch. I also did a small decrease in overtime in public works as well. There are quite a few back and forths and minor adjustments that went into a variety of line items, but these are the highlights of the majority of the major. Yep.
On the decreasing of overtime, isn't that kind of like a shell game?
No.
I mean, I don't see how you can say you're gonna decrease fire overtime when, if we need them, they're gonna get the overtime. I mean, to me, when you're doing an overtime thing, you're just kind of hiding money.
No, because we have some items that are required overtime that we have more control over. We have control over officer meetings that they get paid overtime for. We have control over overtime with the banner.
Okay.
We have control over overtime for trainings. We have control there. So the overtime we do not have control over is callback and, to some extent, shift coverage. But we do have control over some of that other overtime. The dispatch overtime, that overtime had been increased because we were having much more turnover. We're hoping that in the coming year, we've revamped some of the hiring processes and some of the training processes, and we're hoping that we'll see a little less of that turnover. I also reduced the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District assessment. We actually got that bill for the fiscal year, so I put that in the actual billing. I also realized I think the board wanted to have that SRT team, that was the police. They wanted that as a separate line item.
What does SRT stand for?
Special reactions team. And I think you guys, that was 7,000, I think, that you guys wanted as a separate line item.
I thought it was 5.
5? Oh, well, 5, found 2,000. I put in 7.
Just reduced the budget by 2,000. 5,000 was the discussion, and it was actually a reduction in your overtime line item. Yes, that was the discussion.
Well, No, it was in, there was $2,000 of it. I put it in training because I didn't want it in overtime.
Is that-
I'm sorry?
Are we
Where you
talking
at?
about the SRT
Yes,
on page 14, the third line from the bottom?
yeah.
Because that's 5,000 now, it's in there.
Oh, I did put it in as 5,000. Good for me.
There's no
Okay, I'm
savings
sorry.
in two.
Yeah, there is no, that's 5,000. What, it was in the training. I had put it in training.
Did we reduce training from 15 to 13?
And training was at, where's training, we had up to like, I had only put 2,000 in. That was a manager change. He requested 5. I put 2,000 into training and made training 17,000. I then realized that when I was going back through this, that there was some consensus from the board to put 5,000 in a separate line item for SRT. So I reduced that training from 17 to 15, and I added the 5,000 to the SRT.
Right here, SRT.
I didn't think we should put in the 5,000 for the SRT.
You did,
No, but the boards thought we should.
right. Keep it dumb.
I don't want anybody breaking in my house, taking my drugs. Let's fire.
130 to 125.
I put it down to 120. My recommendation was, I put it down to 120.
Training was at
It was at 22. That's where he had it. That's where he had it.
Yeah.
And I moved it to 17.
And
So I
then-
moved their
so this
overtime.
is only 50.
I moved their overtime down to 120 because I thought that's where they were last year, and I didn't think they needed it anymore because they're fully staffed.
We're good there then.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew that paperwork would come in handy.
Do you need me to take that for you? With regard to the capital, which is your other handout, I removed 15,000 from the municipal center for the truck purchase, for the used truck. And that was actually just totally removed in there. We're gonna have to do a truck sharing on that.
Is that the red truck you're talking about, that we're talking about?
Yeah, the red truck is gone.
It is gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sitting out there, but you can't start it.
That's the truck we used, is that what that
We
is?
were, we were going to put 15,000 to buy a used truck and get rid of that red truck, and now we're just gonna get rid of the red truck.
We took it out today.
So the truck used should come out. Oh, we had it, isn't it?
That line, that description coming out. I'm just trying to be totally transparent.
Oh, I understand. Good for a change.
I forgot to take that out.
It's not cheap though, right?
I moved the cemetery mausoleum repair to FY13 with the idea that if that land sale goes through after the court case, it'll be 2013. And that money would be available to pay for that repair. The other thing that we have is we do have some trusts that we can use some of that money for. However, I want a little more detailed accounting for that. So I moved it to FY13. We may be able to do it with other funding in this upcoming fiscal year with outside funding, but at this point, we just moved it out to FY13. And then we reduced paving as directed. And then I talked with Andrea, and that's why Andrea's here in BAVB, to talk about, there is a possibility, again, to do the grant, the downtown improvement grant, downtown transportation fund grant, and if they were just doing signage, if we just do the signage, it would be 10,000? It'd be about 10,000. And so with that, one of the ideas is to put the 10,000 in, I don't know if that would, is that capital? I don't know what the life of those, of signs are.
How long does it have to be done?
Years it should.
10 years, isn't it?
No, anything over a year. Individually, those signs.
Yeah, that's true. Individually, the signs wouldn't.
Individually, the signs are.
Yeah, so we'd go in our operating budget. And so that's what they're here to talk about.
To put 10,000 in the capital plan?
No, it would go in operating, because it actually wouldn't be a capital. It would be operating, and it would be as a, you would probably do it as a, transfer to grants, because it would be a grant match of 10,000.
How much is the grant that we're applying for?
The grant then would be 25 that we would apply for, and you would do 10 for that.
The grant would be for 25, but we would come up with 10?
No,
Yeah.
no,
That's about right.
Yes.
yeah, they would grant us, we would have to come up with some other match, in kind match, but there would be, the project itself would cost 25, right, that's what you're saying?
We have the ability to, we can leverage time to write grants, management, we can find design time, but actual cost of purchasing the things, these signs, we need to cover that between either a match, and the funding itself, the downtown transportation grant, is a 50% match. So we can get half of the project costs through the grant, which was very lowly subscribed in this first round, we understand, so there is quite a bit of money left.
That's one, yeah.
So this is really sort of a scaled back request. If we can get some money in the budget, then we would put together a program to at least get, the signage that we're talking about is a welcome sign out at exit 2, and then signs that direct visitors to the downtown and to parking, and then a couple of principal buildings. So it's,
So how much does that whole project going to cost to do?
yeah, the entire project would, if we could match $10,000, it would be about $25,000 total.
The whole project would be 25.
The whole project would be 25,000.
What would the expenses be? I think what they're trying to figure out is what's actual cash and what's in kind, and the budget breakdown.
We have, hold on just a second.
We would be, let me ask this question. We would be applying for a grant of $25,000. You're looking for $10,000 in cash and $15,000 in in-kind service. If it's a dollar for dollar match.
Right, $10,000 from the town, there'd be $2,000 in in-kind service for $12,500, and then the rest, $12,500, would be money from the grant program. And so the hard cost, the actual money that we would be spending, would be $22,500 of actual things being built and tracked. Does that make sense?
Okay, and this all goes out for an RFP?
It does. What we're basing this on was some signage that was done over several years through the Connecticut River Byways program. So they have a sign design. Some of those signs are going into town now, all up and down the Connecticut River. And we're sort of dovetailing on that design to add some around town. So it would be a package that gets put together with these, this style, and it goes out for basically vendor pricing. And we'd see about how it gets planted in the ground. Maybe we can get volunteers to help put some of the signs in the ground, or maybe that it goes as part of the construction piece to have the signs procured and
Okay, but nothing's been decided as to who's going to do all of this.
No.
That would go out.
that would go out, yes, the entire thing. That's right.
So what would be the in-kind services? Who, that is,
The in-kind services, we can count towards this match, the grant writing and the management of the grant, which is what BAPB does. There may be some design costs, so often we volunteer to put together drawings and things like that, as part of that bid package. We had, in the previous round, we had gotten a proposal from an outside firm to design the signs, who did the last sign design. And we're thinking at this point that we can probably negotiate and just purchase their specs for a small amount of money, and then we can do most of the design as a volunteer. So that's part of how we're trying to reduce the actual cost. So that's,
In-kind can also be, you know, if Public Works plants them in the ground.
Right, well, I want to be clear on this, because I think that when we had the sidewalk discussion, we're applying for a grant through the downtown organization, okay? And then it would be the municipality that dictates what the signage would be. It would be us that says these are the signs that we need, because one of the shortcomings that we have been discussing is the lack of good signage for parking. I mean, really poor signage, getting people off of Canal Street down Elm Street towards the transportation center. And really poor signage for the Harris lot, poor signage for the Highgrove lot. And so if this is going to be a grant for the municipality, shouldn't the municipality be saying, this is where we want the majority of this money going?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, downtown transportation funds, the grant application is really the municipality applying for the money.
That's correct.
And so yes, and our design committee had put together a schematic, which, you know, we still have, and we could sit down and talk about. And we'd love to sit down and talk about it, and if where the different signs are going and what we're highlighting, the town wants to do some, you know, whether it's Steve or someone says, oh no, we need it over here, that would be fine with us. You know, I think we've just sort of put together a plan that we thought was a good plan from the committee's point of view, trying to address the issues that you're already saying. So we're all in agreement. We just need to have the format put together of the scheme. Does that
Dora?
make sense?
Well, I certainly support the idea of putting signs downtown. I just am really finding it difficult to swallow that $25,000 would be needed to put signage down there. That's a lot of that's a lot of money for signs. I mean, it just seems to me that that's a lot. But I wholeheartedly support the idea of putting signs, and I agree with Dick. I would like to see signage for parking. I think that's probably the biggest need we have down there.
I
I'd
think,
like to see what the sign
yeah,
looks like.
I think, you know, and again, I think that we can certainly be up for discussion about it. I think that, as Bob said, the proposal and the drawings take off from this byways signage, which you may even have in a garage somewhere at your site. So it's trying to, you know, design-wise, to be consistent with that so things look good. And I think the other thing is, these things are like really expensive, and maybe we can get the cost down through bids, but they just, you know, the costs that were assigned to this project came out of this group called Landworks, which is out of Middlebury, and they just put together the spec for us, stepping off from the byway stuff, because we knew they had it, and we had a grant proposal.
I mean, how many signs are we? How many signs are we talking about? I mean, because
Very.
we've got. I mean, it's not that big a downtown, and I mean that's the other thing is, I mean, excessive signs.
It's not like we live in a huge community.
It's on there. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Please.
if you look at there's 7 parking signs, 4 directional signs, and then 1 what's called a welcome sign when you go to exit 2. So the directional signs are the stand post that says, you know, downtown that way or museum this way. So it's basically 1 for each principal road coming in. You know, 1 on Route 9, exit 2. We're really looking at the 3 exits and getting people into the downtown. And as you come off those routes, then the parking signs say that's where the parking lot is. So there's basically 1 at each intersection, and then there's 1 at the parking lots. We also went through and culled, and it's not to say that has to be the final design. You know, whatever the right process is, we're happy to just try to make progress at this. But we went through as well and said that's a lot of signs, and sort of peeled that back. The cost of the signs, I agree. It seems very expensive. What we have is the data from the work that's already been done. So these signs that you're looking at are the signs that are used in this program up the Connecticut River, and they have cost data from purchasing those. So we just took the cost of those signs and put those into the budget. We haven't priced it or looked at alternatives, but presumably there's been a whole process to come up with those.
I think we certainly are willing and could do that. I think what we're hoping is that we can just get some level of match money in the budget so we can work on this proposal and be competitive in this round in March, because there's still $240-something thousand left in this downtown transportation fund. And call me greedy, but it just seems like it'd be nice for us to be able to leverage some of that when there's the opportunity.
Darrell?
Okay, this is my question. We've had this discussion once here. We had the discussion once in there. I thought it was over, and here it is again. So my question is this on our process, okay? When are we done? Because if we're gonna bring stuff back, then I got something I wanna bring back. I don't get how this can come back to us again when we've already hashed this one out. That's my only question, and that's more for either you or the town manager.
Well, I don't, I think that when BABB was before us before, they had made this request, and we didn't think that we would support this. I don't think that we took an official vote. I would look for us to take an official vote here to say, no, we're not going to fund this request. We took that in as general information, but I don't recall, unless someone else on the board can recall.
I think the two of us were not there. I think Martha and I were not there at
Yeah.
that meeting.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it was just there.
Right,
Yeah.
Can we apply for this grant without tying the town into $10,000?
Well, the only thing that wouldn't happen is that if you, you would need the money there, but you wouldn't spend the money if you didn't get the grant. The grant, this money wouldn't be used for anything other than grant match for this round. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't say the next round in April, you say, well, we didn't get this, we still have 10,000 in the budget.
Well, what if we left the 10,000 out and applied for the grant and got 15,000
We won't without match money.
without
Yeah.
match?
Yeah, the grant requires a 50% match.
Match.
So they'll only fund 50% of the project, which is why we sometimes inflate the in-kind cost.
Which I
To
agree.
get a little more money from the state. But yeah, it's a 50-50 thing.
I,
We can only get 50 cents of it.
5,000.
you know, Barb just whispered in my ear, and I agree
I
with
do
her.
that all the time.
I knew I had.
Is that
Good things, Jim.
you know, we have two separate issues here. And we have the signs, the welcoming signs that you want to talk about. The parking signs should be funded from the parking budget, which I must tell you is, and I don't have to tell you, is as fragile as anything that I've dealt with in the community.
However, we have talked about the need for signs
Yeah,
to
that's right.
increase
We-
parking.
That's right, that's right.
So
We're
it's the
we're kind of-
catch-22.
We're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's between knowing that we need to do this. And when I look at the parking design signs, they're not going to work on Elliott Street, those signs. The signs that we have there right now don't work on Elliott Street, except for the Harmony Lot where everybody knows the Harmony Lot is. You can't really pick up the signs to get in the transportation center unless you are actually traveling east. And you don't even pick that up because that sign is actually facing west.
I mean, I think we're sitting down and looking at the map and figuring out where are they going and where are you coming from. And we had done some of that, and maybe our answer isn't right, but, you know, I hear what you're saying.
People think about 5,000.
Jesse?
Yeah. I share Darrell's concern, even though I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I guess I'm concerned that, you know, we're looking at something that we're going to be faced with again next year or the next year, because, you know, we're lucky enough in this town to have 3 exits on an interstate. It's the only town in Vermont that has 3 exits on an interstate, either 89 or 91. We're talking about putting a sign at exit 2, but we've got exit 1 and exit 3. A lot of people get off at exit 3. a lot of people get off at exit 1. And, you know, so we're covering exit 2 with a welcoming sign, but what about the other 2 exits? I mean, and are we going to have signs from exit 1 directing people and exit 3 directing people to town where parking is with this proposal? I just think we're looking at it piecemeal, and I hate to do that when we have a whole town to look at here. I know it's more expensive, but you know, I don't want to have these signs and then 2 years from now have some different kind of sign. If we can have it consistent, and I know you wanted to deal with the bicycles and the other stuff down on the little plaza in front of the River Garden, but you know, the signage is important, but it's also, you know, like Dick says, has said a couple times, that I mean, I came down there today on Elliott Street from the west to east. I don't even remember seeing a thing about parking, you know? I mean, I wasn't looking for it, but I think it's not necessarily visible. So I just hate to see, well, because there's money out there, I understand, Andrea, that there's $244,000 or whatever to really get some of that, but, you know, I hate to see this done in a piecemeal fashion and kind of half-assed, basically.
Actually, in our meetings in the design committee, when we work on this stuff, we had a big scheme that brought everybody in from all 3 exits. And it was big, and it was expensive, and we said, you know what, maybe we need to take this in phases, and let's start with getting people in from exit 2, and then maybe, you know, we will move. I mean, theoretically, there's downtown transportation funds every year. And if we can get forward-thinking enough, that we can start saying, okay, we need a signage scheme, and this is what it's going to look like, and we're going to implement it over the course of a number of years. I feel like we would be doing a good thing if we could get that far with the planning, because I agree, I don't think it should be piecemeal. I think the signs, design-wise, should be consistent with each other, and I mean, we want to look neat and tidy here as a whole system. So, but it is big, and these things are expensive, and I think that's why we're doing it. So.
It seems,
Are we limited on the, I mean, if we apply for $100,000, for example, are we limited only to 25?
75 a year. We could be getting 75 a year. This would be
That means a match from the
75 a
town.
match as well.
Yeah.
32.5 or something, or 35.
37.5.
I mean,
37.5,
I guess to some degree, we're at your pleasure. As an organization, downtown organization, we're trying to leverage what we have, which is some volunteer time, the ability to access these grant funds to try to incrementally make some improvements. If you think it makes more sense for us to go back and, you know, do some outreach with some feedback and back with sort of a master plan, we can do that. And then maybe that's a master plan you can pick off a little bit at a time, because it sounds like, you know, I see the struggles you guys go through to put the budget you've got. So, you know, what do we ask for, or how much support can we put towards this, one of many needs? Also, you know, if you feel like, well, parking is the main thing, we can scale this back this year and just put up some signs at the parking lots. Forget about the welcome sign and the directional signs to get in, and just try to add some signs, so at least if you're driving by the parking lot, you know what it is. And that might be, you know, $5,000 or $6,000 worth of match, and we can go to a $12,000 grant and start to pick away at this. So,
I guess my
Is the downtown organization willing to kick in any money?
we don't really have money to kick in. Part of the issue, this is a bigger conversation with our budget that we're coming back with. We have some issues with still, we're working through our, you know, getting the River Garden up and viable and standing on its own. So we'd love to be in the place where we could raise other sorts of money to leverage these kinds of funds. Long term, I think we might be able to get there. Right now, we're also in a situation where we're really trying to keep our head above water and balance our budgets. So what we're kicking in is volunteer time. You know, so we are putting either our staff time, resources to it, plus we can leverage some volunteers to contribute, but not cash.
Zero, right?
Right, without that.
And then it would go to 199.
Yes.
On one hand, I like the idea of uniformity. I like the idea of using the Connecticut River Byway signs. I think having a few of those and, you know, connecting it, you know, the rest of the byway. But on the other hand, we're an arts town. And, you know, we're talking about putting up a lot of signs, and seems to me, and I'm going back to partially the cost and also partially just, you know, sometimes we see these grants and we start doing this thing where costs escalate because of industrial type stuff that we're trying to get, when maybe we don't necessarily need to do that. Maybe we've got a local sign maker that can, you know, and I don't know if that's true or not, and that goes back to maybe doing a little more research. But I just, you know, I grapple with this stuff when I'm thinking about these things, because I hate to make us too, you know, standardized.
Well,
I think
Our-
we've beaten this one.
yes, we have. We have. We agree that.
10,000, I think we put this off, I really do. I look at the Chamber of Commerce, don't they have a thing, 1, 2, 3, exit 1, 2, 3 or something? What was their big ad?
Brattleboro, one and only Brattleboro.
Something.
Brattleboro, one and only.
Well, they've got that, but they had a 3 exit thing as well. I think,
Right now, just to make sure everybody understands, Barb talked about the overall budget, which includes the human services. The operating budget, which I always say, that's what the board's responsible for. The operating budget as it sits right now, without any additional monies, is 1.90. And if we added 10,000, it would be at 1.99. It would also take the budget as a whole, which includes the human service portion of the budget, up to 3.8?
3.08.
3.08.
What did I say?
3.08. Is there, obviously, Martha's not in support of this. Darrell?
Yeah, me neither. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
No,
There's
I'm
just
not
too many
looking at
other
the whole
things,
budget.
and
I mean, I already said I was looking for, you know, 3 or less, so, you know.
I'd like to, but we don't have any money, and there's other things in this budget that I sure would have
And I
liked to have
want the
seen.
library if I'm putting
That's, see,
$10,000
that's my
back
big
in.
thing, is that's, the library's one, and I got a couple.
Thanks for.
My other,
All we can do is ask. You know,
Thank you.
keep working on this.
I would suggest,
you
you know, in
guys,
light
but
of
it's just, we don't have
Dora's
money either.
comment, I would suggest that you get with the Arts Committee. Maybe the Arts Committee is working, I see the minutes, and they're working very hard. I think they just finished a meeting, but maybe they can come up with some kind of sign that, you know, part of the industrialization is because these parking signs last for 10 or 15 years. You know, you've seen them in New York. They're ugly as sin. But maybe they can come up with something that, you know, 20 parking signs that are all pretty close to the same, but they have a little artwork to them or something. I don't know. But that last, you know, we did have a little problem with the horizontal one, I think, Steve, didn't we, in front of the
It
Huntsville
worked out well.
Pharmacy?
It's fine.
Because it's fragile, but maybe they can come up with something. And I don't know.
we're at two.
No, we're at 1. Our operating budget's at 1.9. Are there any other questions?
That's money, that's money.
Are there any other questions on the budget that you might have? No other questions that you have? You're comfortable with where we're at, other than not happy with everything?
Yeah, well, I didn't get my way on anything.
Jesse,
Everybody's
Mark,
on
Story of my life.
you
I
good
lose all
with
the time.
with the budget?
It's under 3, right?
Yes.
Under
Yeah,
3.
that's all I
Yeah,
care
that's
about.
right. You and Jesse are in.
But I hear what you said, Darrell, about the expenses and overtime. I had to send, you know, I have to send some of the same kind of thing about what's the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Because last year it was 100,000. It's this year, I think the budget is 85,000. This is overtime for police, for fire.
However, last year, just to clarify, the last 2 years, we were working to pay out all their old comp time. This is the first year, current year is the first year that we were not paying out that, that backlog of comp time.
that's right.
So 30,000 of that 100 was from payback of old comp.
No, 'cause we had a
of
budget-
debt of buildup.
Yeah, actual for 2010, fiscal year 2010 was just over 100,000.
Right.
This year's budget is 65, and now we're budgeting for 2012 of 85. So it's
Right.
actually up, but you're going to be able to maintain the 85 or less? Or we just,
I asked for 90.
you're going to get 85 though?
I'll just have to do it somehow.
Yeah, some people might not be able to put up banners then.
That's a bigger decision than I make.
I understand.
That comes from the
But I mean,
board. That comes from the board, that's a.
Yeah, we're making you make that decision,
No, no, no.
the reduction.
We don't want to go into that right
Say
now.
you don't have to-
We don't, let's not talk about that right now. We're all happy, it's almost Christmas.
That's
Mike and I are neighbors.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session to
So
discuss a
moved.
contractual matter.
Contractual matter that we don't want any disclosure on too early, so.
And do we need to invite anybody in besides yourself?
Just me, and it'll be about 5 minutes.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.